Homeless twins sell music box to Billionaire. He opens it and tears fall. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The bitter Rhode Island winter showed no mercy that December morning. Snow fell in thick flakes, coating the streets of Providence in a deceptive blanket of white beauty that concealed the harshness beneath. Inside a small drafty apartment, 5-year-old twins Lily and Lucy Reynolds huddled together under a worn quilt, their identical faces framed by auburn curls, their breath visible in the frigid air. "Girls, I'm so sorry," Eleanor Reynolds whispered, her weathered hands trembling as she adjusted the thermostat that hadn't produced heat in 3 days. At 72, Eleanor's eyes carried the weight of raising her grandchildren alone while her daughter Jennifer served an unjust prison sentence for stealing food to feed these very children. "It's okay, Grandma," Lily said, always the practical one. "We can wear our coats inside like an adventure." Lucy, the more sensitive twin, simply nodded, clutching their most treasured possession, a delicate music box with intricate golden details, the last gift from their mother before she was taken away. "Maybe," Lucy began hesitantly, looking down at the music box. "Maybe we could sell this to help pay for the heat." Eleanor's heart broke. "No, darling. That's your mother's special gift to you." But Lily's eyes had already lit with determination. "Mom would want us to be warm. She told us to take care of each other, remember?" That afternoon, with Eleanor too exhausted to argue, the twins bundled up in mismatched mittens and scarves, carefully wrapped the music box in newspaper, and ventured into the snow-covered streets. They stood shivering outside Westbrook Mall, approaching well-dressed shoppers who hurried past without a glance. After 2 hours, their small fingers numb, with cold, a tall figure in a cashmere coat stopped before them. "What are you selling?" asked a deep voice. Lucy held up their treasure with trembling hands. "It's our mommy's music box. It plays the prettiest song." Alexander Hayes, tech billionaire and one of America's most eligible bachelors, found himself inexplicably drawn to the golden box and the solemn-faced twins. He knelt to examine it, his breath catching as something about the craftsmanship stirred a distant memory. "How much?" he asked gently. $50, Lily stated firmly, having researched prices at the pawnshop window. Alexander pulled out his wallet and handed them $500 bills. "Will this help?" The twins' identical eyes widened in disbelief. "But sir," Lucy whispered, "that's too much money." Alexander smiled, a rare, genuine expression on his usually guarded face. "Some things are worth more than their price tag." As he walked away with the music box tucked carefully in his pocket, Alexander couldn't explain the strange pull he felt toward the object, or the 2 little girls who had sold it to him. Little did he know that this chance encounter would unravel secrets buried for years and change all their lives forever. The penthouse suite of the Providence Grand Hotel seemed to emphasize Alexander Hayes' solitude rather than his success. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed a snow-covered cityscape, the lights twinkling like the stars he couldn't see through the light pollution. 35 years old and worth billions, Alexander had everything money could buy and nothing that truly mattered. He placed the music box on the marble countertop, surprised by his own impulsive purchase. Alexander Hayes didn't make impulsive decisions. His calculated business moves had built Hayes Technologies into a global empire, yet today, he'd given 2 little girls enough money to buy 100 music boxes without a second thought. Shrugging off his cashmere coat, he poured himself a glass of scotch and stared at the golden object. Something about it tugged at his memory, a ghost of familiarity he couldn't quite place. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. "Alexander Hayes," he answered automatically. "Mr. Hayes, it's Victoria. The board members have arrived for dinner downstairs." "I'll be down shortly," he replied, though the thought of another business dinner filled him with a now familiar emptiness. Across town, Eleanor Reynolds gasped when the twins proudly displayed their earnings. "Girls, where did you get this money?" she asked, alarmed at the sight of $500 bills. "A nice man bought Mommy's music box," Lucy explained, her eyes bright. "He said it was worth more." Eleanor sank into a chair, torn between relief and heartbreak. The money would pay their heating bill, buy groceries, maybe even get Lucy's persistent cough checked at the clinic. But Jennifer's music box, the one thing connecting the twins to their mother, was gone. "What did this man look like?" she asked cautiously. "Tall," offered Lily, "with sad eyes." "And a fancy coat," added Lucy. "He was nice, Grandma. Not scary." That night, after ordering a simple dinner to his room despite the business dinner downstairs, Alexander found himself drawn again to the music box. He ran his fingers over the intricate golden patterns, discovering a small latch he hadn't noticed before. The box was designed with a hidden compartment. His heart inexplicably raced as he pressed the latch, revealing a small space beneath the mechanism. Inside lay a photograph, worn at the edges but otherwise preserved. Alexander's glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. The photograph showed a younger version of himself, perhaps 22, with his arm around a beautiful woman. With auburn hair, Jennifer Reynolds. His first love. The one who disappeared without explanation after their summer together at Stanford. The room seemed to spin as long-buried memories surfaced. Jennifer's laugh, the plans they'd made, the sudden silence when she stopped answering his calls and vanished from campus. Alexander turned the photo over with trembling fingers. Written in faded blue ink was a simple message. "Alexander and me before everything changed. The girls should know someday. The girls. Those identical twins with auburn hair. Auburn hair just like Jennifer's." Alexander sank to the floor amidst the broken glass, the implications hitting him with the force of a physical blow. After all these years, after all his searching, he'd found Jennifer Reynolds. Or rather, her daughters had found him. His daughters. Alexander barely slept, the photograph burning in his mind like a fever. Dawn found him at his laptop, searching frantically for information about Jennifer Reynolds. His usual composed demeanor had crumbled, replaced by desperate energy he hadn't felt in years. 3 searches yielded nothing useful until he tried Rhode Island's prison records. There it was, Jennifer Reynolds, sentenced to 4 years for petty theft. The details were sparse, but the conviction date aligned perfectly with what must have been shortly after the twins' birth. Alexander's hands shook as he dialed his head of security. "Marcus, I need everything you can find on Jennifer Reynolds, currently incarcerated at Delby Women's Correctional Facility in Rhode Island, and 2 children, likely her daughters, twin girls, approximately 5 years old." "May I ask why, sir?" Marcus inquired, surprise evident in his voice. Alexander never made personal requests. "It's..." Alexander paused, staring at the photograph. "It's personal, highest priority. Across town, Eleanor served the twins oatmeal in their newly heated apartment. The utility company had reconnected service immediately after her payment, and the grocery bags on the counter promised meals for weeks. "Grandma, when can we visit Mommy again?" Lucy asked, drawing patterns in her oatmeal with her spoon. Eleanor's smile faltered. "The prison's quite far, sweetheart, but maybe next month if we save the bus fare." "We have money now," Lily pointed out practically. "The nice man gave us lots." Eleanor nodded, wondering about this mysterious benefactor. "Yes, we do. And we'll visit your mother soon." Later that morning, as the twins worked on their reading at the kitchen table, Eleanor retrieved a weathered photo album from beneath her bed. She found the picture she sought, Jennifer at her Stanford graduation, arm in arm with a handsome young man with piercing eyes and an uncertain smile, the same man who appeared in the photograph hidden in the music box. "Alexander Hayes," she whispered. Had he recognized the music box somehow? Or was this merely a cosmic coincidence? Meanwhile, Alexander sat rigidly in his hotel room as Marcus delivered his findings. Jennifer Reynolds, 34, serving 4 years for stealing food from Wilson's Market. Value, less than $100. Unusually harsh sentence for a first-time offender. Curious detail. The judge who sentenced her, Clarence Wilson, owns the market chain. Alexander's jaw tightened. The twins? Lucy and Lily Reynolds, age 5, in custody of their grandmother, Eleanor Reynolds, 72. Foster care placement was considered due to Eleanor's age and limited finances, but Jennifer's public defender managed to keep them together. "And the father?" Alexander asked, his voice barely audible. Marcus hesitated. "No father listed on their birth certificates, sir." That evening, with the twins asleep, Eleanor sat by their bedside, watching their identical peaceful faces. The extra money had allowed her to buy them matching teddy bears, their first new toys in over a year. "Jennifer," she whispered to the darkness, "I think he's found them. The man you never stopped loving." Across town, Alexander stood at his penthouse window, the music box still unopened beside him. He couldn't bring himself to hear its melody yet. Some irrational fear held him back. Tomorrow he would visit the prison. Tomorrow he would see Jennifer again after 13 years of silence. Tomorrow he would ask her why she never told him. He had daughters. The Delby Women's Correctional Facility loomed against the gray winter sky, a concrete monolith surrounded by chain-link fences topped with razor wire. Alexander's driver pulled the sleek black sedan to the visitor's entrance, where Alexander sat motionless, gathering his courage. "Sir?" Thomas, his longtime driver, prompted gently. "We've arrived." Alexander nodded, straightening his tie, an unnecessary gesture born of nervousness rather than vanity. He deliberately dressed down in a simple navy suit rather than his usual designer attire, not wanting to emphasize the stark contrast between his world and Jennifer's current reality. "Wait here," he instructed. "This may take some time." The prison's interior assaulted his senses, the harsh fluorescent lighting, the antiseptic smell barely masking something more institutional, the echoing sounds of metal doors and regulated voices. Alexander followed a guard through security, checkpoints, past suspicious glances, to a room divided by a long table with chairs positioned on opposite sides. 15 minutes, the guard informed him curtly. Alexander sat rigidly, his heart hammering against his ribs. When the door on the opposite side opened, he stopped breathing entirely. Jennifer Reynolds entered, her auburn hair, so like her daughter's, pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her prison uniform hung loosely on her frame, suggesting weight loss. But her eyes, those eyes he'd never forgotten, were the same, cautious, intelligent, beautiful. She froze when she saw him, her composed prisoner's mask slipping for an instant to reveal raw shock. "Alexander?" she whispered, the name clearly unfamiliar on her lips after so many years. "Jennifer," he responded, his voice tight with emotion. She sat slowly, her movements deliberate, as if approaching a mirage that might vanish. "How did you find me?" Alexander reached into his pocket and carefully placed the photograph on the table between them. "Your daughters sold me your music box." Jennifer's eyes widened, filling with tears. She quickly blinked away. "Lily and Lucy approached you." Her voice held a mother's terror at the thought of her children vulnerable on the street. "They were selling it for heating money," Alexander explained, watching her face carefully. "I gave them $500. Relief and gratitude flashed across Jennifer's features before suspicion returned. "And that brought you here? A random encounter with two little girls?" Alexander placed his palm flat on the table, leaning forward, slightly. "They have your hair, your eyes. And when I opened that music box and found our photograph..." He paused, his voice dropping. "Are they mine, Jennifer?" The question hung between them like a live wire. Jennifer's eyes never left his as she answered in a whisper, "Yes." The single word hit Alexander with physical force. He'd suspected, known really, since seeing the photograph, but hearing the confirmation made his breath catch. Why? The question contained 13 years of confusion, hurt, and lost time. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jennifer's hands twisted, together the only outward sign of her distress. "Your mother told me you knew, that you wanted nothing to do with me or the pregnancy, that you'd arranged for money to take care of it and moved on." Alexander's blood ran cold. "My mother? Victoria?" Jennifer nodded. "She came to my apartment after you left for your London internship. Said you'd asked her to handle things. I was 22, alone, pregnant, and believed her." "I never knew," Alexander whispered, 13 years of questions finally answered. I searched for you. You disappeared. She made me disappear, Jennifer corrected softly. And now here we are. I need to see them, Alexander said, his voice strained with emotion. Properly meet them. Jennifer's expression grew guarded. They're 5 years old, Alexander. They've never had a father. They don't even know who you are. But they will, he replied, determination settling over him like armor. I'm going to get you out of here. A bitter smile crossed Jennifer's face. 4 prominent lawyers already tried. Judge Wilson made an example of me. My public defender says we need new evidence which doesn't exist. Alexander leaned forward, his eyes intense. Jennifer, I'm worth $27 billion. I own the largest private legal firm in the country. The governor plays golf at my club. Her eyes widened slightly, realizing how far he had risen since they parted. Your case will be reopened by tomorrow, he continued. But I need to know everything. Exactly what happened. Why you were in that store. How a first-time offender got 4 years for stealing food. For a moment, Jennifer's prison-hardened exterior cracked, revealing the vulnerability beneath. I lost my teaching job when the school budget was cut. Couldn't find another position. The money ran out, and the twins were hungry. She swallowed hard. I'd never stolen anything before, but they were crying, and I was desperate. And the judge? Clarence Wilson, my former father-in-law. Alexander's eyebrows shot up. You were married? Briefly. To James Wilson. We divorced before I knew I was pregnant. Her voice grew quieter. The Wilson family owns half this town. When James found out I was expecting another man's children, she trailed off. His father made sure you paid. Alexander finished, pieces falling into place. The guard approached, signaling their time was ending. Jennifer, Alexander said urgently, I will fix this, but I need to ask, do you want me in their lives, in your life, after all this time? Jennifer studied him, searching for the boy she'd loved in the powerful man before her. The girls need stability, not confusion. If you're going to help us, it can't be temporary. They've had enough disappointment. Alexander nodded solemnly. I've missed 13 years, I won't miss another day. As Jennifer stood to leave, she paused. The music box, does it still play? I haven't opened it, Alexander admitted. It didn't feel right without you. Something softened in her eyes. That melody was the girls' lullaby every night until I came here. Eleanor says they still ask for it. As Alexander left the prison, snow began falling again, dusting his shoulders. His driver opened the car door, but Alexander paused, looking back at the facility that held the mother of his children. Thomas, he said quietly, we're staying in Providence indefinitely. And call Marcus, I need the full team here immediately. We're taking on the Wilson family. That evening, Alexander finally opened the music box. As the delicate melody filled his hotel room, he stared at the family photograph and made a silent promise to the daughters he'd just discovered. No more lost time. Within 48 hours of Alexander's visit, the case of Rhode Island versus Jennifer Reynolds had been assigned to Judge Marion Collins, a respected federal appointee with no ties to the Wilson family. Alexander's legal team had discovered procedural irregularities in Jennifer's original trial, including evidence that should have been inadmissible and a clear conflict of interest with Judge Wilson presiding over a case involving his son's ex-wife. It's a travesty, Alexander's lead attorney told him as they left the courthouse. We'll have her out on bail by tomorrow while we work on a full dismissal. Alexander nodded, distracted. Today was the day he would meet his daughters. Properly. This time. Not as a stranger buying a music box, but as someone who cared about their mother. Not yet as their father. That revelation would come later with Jennifer's guidance. Eleanor Reynolds's apartment building looked even more dilapidated in daylight than Alexander had imagined. He climbed the stairs to apartment 3B, carrying a small bag of carefully chosen gifts. His knock was answered by an elderly woman with kind eyes and a cautious expression. Mr. Hayes, she said, her voice revealing no surprise. I thought you might come. Mrs. Reynolds, Alexander replied, suddenly unsure of himself despite commanding boardrooms daily. May I come in? Eleanor stepped aside, revealing a small, clean apartment where two identical little girls sat at a table coloring. They looked up in unison, recognition dawning on their faces. "It's the music box man," Lucy whispered loudly. "Girls," Eleanor said, "this is Mr. Hayes. He's helping your mother with her legal troubles." Alexander knelt to their eye level, maintaining a respectful distance. "Hello again, Lily and Lucy. I've brought something that belongs to you." He placed the music box carefully on the table. Both girls stared at it wide-eyed. "You brought it back?" Lily asked suspiciously, ever the practical twin. "And we keep the money too?" Lucy added hopefully. Alexander smiled, charmed by their directness. "The money is yours, and so is this. It was wrong of me to take something so special from you, even if you were selling it." He opened the music box, and the familiar melody filled the small apartment. Lucy's eyes immediately filled with tears, while Lily's expression remained guarded but softened slightly. "That's Mommy's song," Lucy whispered. Alexander nodded. "I knew your mother a long time ago. She's a very special person, and I'm going to help her come home to you." "Really?" Lily asked, hope and doubt battling in her young voice. "Grown-ups always say things like that." "I promise," Alexander replied solemnly, "and I never break my promises." Eleanor watched this exchange with knowing eyes. After the twins returned to their coloring, she gestured for Alexander to join her in the tiny kitchen. "You're their father," she stated simply. Not a question. Alexander nodded, unable to find words. "Jennifer never told them," Eleanor continued, quietly. "She wanted to protect them from disappointment." "I didn't know," Alexander whispered. "My mother—" "I suspected as much," Eleanor interrupted gently. "Jennifer never believed you would abandon her willingly." As Alexander prepared to leave, Lucy approached him shyly. "Will you come back?" she asked, her small voice hopeful. Looking into eyes so like his own, Alexander made another promise he intended to keep forever. "Yes, Lucy, I'll always come back." The courtroom fell silent as Jennifer Reynolds stepped through the side door, escorted by a bailiff. She wore simple clothes provided by Alexander's team, a modest navy dress and cardigan that made her look like the schoolteacher she once was rather than an inmate. Her eyes immediately found Alexander in the front row, then shifted anxiously to Eleanor and the twins seated beside him. Lucy waved excitedly while Lily sat perfectly still, her small face serious beyond her years. Jennifer managed a trembling smile as Judge Collins entered the courtroom. The hearing lasted less than 30 minutes. Alexander's legal team presented their motion for immediate release pending a full review of the case, citing procedural violations and newfound evidence of judicial bias. "Bail is set at $200,000, Judge Collins announced. The defendant will surrender her passport and report weekly to a probation officer." Alexander's attorney paid the bail immediately, and by noon, Jennifer Reynolds walked out of the courthouse a free woman, temporarily at least, but it was more freedom than she'd known in almost 2 years. "Mommy!" The twins broke from Eleanor's grasp, racing toward their mother who knelt to catch them, tears streaming down her face as she embraced them. Alexander hung back, giving the family their moment. He'd arranged for a private apartment in a secure building, spacious but not ostentatious, where Jennifer and the twins could stay during the legal proceedings. Eleanor had agreed to move in as well, providing continuity for the girls. Later that afternoon, while the twins napped exhausted by the day's emotions, Jennifer and Alexander sat in the apartment's living room with Eleanor keeping a watchful presence nearby. "I don't know how to thank you," Jennifer said softly. "You don't need to thank me," Alexander replied. "I should have been there all along." Jennifer studied him, the successful businessman so different from the ambitious college student she'd loved. "What happens now, Alexander? With us, with the girls?" He considered his words carefully. "That depends on what you want. I've missed 5 years of their lives, of your life. I won't rush in and disrupt everything. They need to know who you are, Jennifer said. But carefully, slowly. They've had enough upheaval. Alexander nodded. I was thinking perhaps we start with me being your friend, someone who's helping. Let them get comfortable with me before we explain. And us? Jennifer asked, the question hanging between them. There's still an us if you want there to be, he answered honestly. I never stopped wondering about you, Jennifer. But I understand if too much has happened. Jennifer looked toward the bedroom where her daughters slept. We need time, I need time. The girls come first now. I agree completely, Alexander said. We set boundaries. I'll follow your lead. Eleanor, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. Jennifer, this man bought back your music box for $500 just to return it to the girls. I think he deserves a chance. Jennifer smiled, the first genuine smile Alexander had seen since their reunion. We'll take it one day at a time, she said. The girls have their first real play date tomorrow with children from their kindergarten class. Perhaps you could join us at the park afterward? It wasn't forgiveness yet, not fully, but it was a beginning. A careful, measured invitation into the lives of his daughters. Alexander recognized it for the precious gift it was. I'll be there, he promised, understanding that in this relationship, unlike his business dealings, patience would be his greatest asset. The playground bustled with children's laughter and parental chatter as Alexander arrived exactly on time. He spotted Jennifer instantly, seated on a bench watching the twins play on the swings with two other children. Her hair was pulled back, in a simple ponytail, her posture more relaxed than he'd seen since their reunion. Eleanor greeted him first, approaching with a knowing smile. Right on time, Mr. Hayes. The playdate went well. First normal childhood event they've had in years. Alexander nodded, his eyes still on Jennifer and the twins. Do they understand what's happening with their mother's case? Children understand, more than we give them credit for, Eleanor replied. They know their mother was punished unfairly and that you're helping to fix it. Jennifer looked up then, spotting Alexander. She gave a small wave, then called to the twins. Lucy came running, immediately while Lily followed more cautiously, always evaluating, always protecting. Mr. Hayes, Lucy exclaimed, her uninhibited joy a stark contrast to her sister's reserve. We had ice cream with sprinkles, and we made new friends. That sounds wonderful, Alexander replied, kneeling to her level. I'm glad you had fun. Mommy says you're taking us on the carousel, Lily stated, studying him with eyes so like his own. Not a question, but a test. Did adults keep their word around Lily Reynolds? If that's still the plan, Alexander confirmed, looking to Jennifer. She nodded, a slight smile softening her features. The girls have never been on a carousel. The vintage carousel at Providence Park was a landmark. Hand-carved horses with real horsehair tails painted in vibrant colors that had delighted children for generations. As they approached, Lucy gasped in wonder while Lily tried to maintain her composure despite clear excitement. Which horse would you like? Alexander asked the twins. Lucy pointed immediately to a white horse with a golden mane. That one, it looks like a princess horse, Lily considered more carefully. The black one, it looks faster. Alexander helped each girl onto their chosen mount, showing them how to hold the pole. Jennifer stood watching, something complicated in her expression. Joy at her daughter's delight mixed with sadness for the lost years, perhaps. When the ride began, Lucy squealed with delight, while Lily remained silent, a smile gradually spreading across her face as her reserve melted. Alexander stood between them, one hand steadying each girl as the carousel spun. Look at me, Mommy, Lucy called, waving frantically. I'm going faster, Lily declared, though all horses moved at the same pace. Jennifer laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound that Alexander had feared he might never hear again. As the ride slowed, Lucy lost her balance, slipping sideways off her, horse with a cry of alarm. Alexander caught her instantly, lifting her safely into his arms before she could fall. I've got you, he said softly. You're safe. Lucy wrapped her small arms around his neck, recovery from her fright immediate. That was fun. Can we go again? Later, As they shared hot chocolate at a nearby cafe, Lily studied Alexander with her typical intensity. "Thank you for catching Lucy," she said solemnly. "She's clumsy sometimes." "That's what friends do," Alexander replied. "They catch each other when they fall." Something in Lily's expression shifted slightly. The first crack in her defensive wall. Under the table, Jennifer's hand found Alexander's briefly, a momentary touch conveying what words couldn't yet express. Gratitude, possibility, and perhaps the beginnings of forgiveness. The following weeks established a rhythm to their evolving relationship. Alexander attended every court hearing as Jennifer's case moved toward full dismissal. Weekdays, he managed his empire remotely from his Providence hotel suite. Weekends belonged to the twins. Carousels, museums, playgrounds, and gradual introductions to the simple joys their limited circumstances had denied them. Alexander observed how differently his daughters approached each experience. Lucy embraced everything with uninhibited enthusiasm, while Lily carefully analyzed each situation before allowing herself enjoyment. He learned their individual preferences with meticulous attention. Lucy loved anything artistic, her small hands constantly drawing or crafting. Lily preferred puzzles and building blocks, her logical mind working through problems methodically. On a crisp Saturday morning, Alexander arrived at their apartment with 2 carefully wrapped packages. "What's this for?" Jennifer asked, eyeing the gifts. "It's not their birthday." "Just because," Alexander replied. "I missed 5 years of giving them things just because I was thinking of them." Jennifer's expression softened. "They're in the living room with Eleanor." The twins looked up from their coloring books as Alexander entered, their initial excitement at seeing him now comfortably familiar rather than surprising. "I brought something for each of you," he said, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside them, a position that would have shocked his business associates, who knew only his boardroom persona. Lucy tore into her package immediately, gasping at the professional quality art set inside. "Look, Lily. Real paints like the artists use." Lily opened hers more carefully, revealing a beginner's astronomy kit with a child-sized telescope. Her usually serious face brightened. "Is this for star studying?" "For Tao. Stargazing," Alexander confirmed. "I thought maybe we could look at the constellations together sometime." Lily nodded solemnly. "I would like that. The library book says you can see Jupiter sometimes." Jennifer watched from the doorway, arms crossed but expression thoughtful rather than disapproving. Later, as the twins explored their gifts, she joined Alexander in the kitchen. "You're getting to know them well," she observed, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. "They're extraordinary," Alexander said simply. "I see you in both of them." "And yourself," Jennifer added quietly. "Lily has your analytical mind. Lucy has your creativity, the part you suppressed to become a businessman." Alexander considered this. "I never thought about it that way." "When will we tell them?" Jennifer asked, the question they'd been circling for weeks. "When you're ready," Alexander replied. "When we're all ready," Jennifer nodded. "The prosecutor is dropping all charges next week. I'll be truly free. And then? And then perhaps we start building something real," she said, echoing words from 13 years ago. Words that had once frightened a young Alexander Hayes into silence. This time, he reached for her hand across the table. "I'd like that very much." Outside, the first spring flowers were pushing through the winter soil, tentative, fragile, but determined to bloom. Like their relationship, Alexander thought, like the second chance they were carefully nurturing. Jennifer stood on the courthouse steps, her face radiant in the spring sunshine. The judge's words still echoed in her mind. "Case dismissed. Ms. Reynolds, you are free to go with the court's apologies." Alexander stood a respectful distance away, allowing her this moment of vindication. Eleanor held the twins' hands, their matching dresses and ribbons making them look like the celebration they were, living symbols of everything Jennifer had fought to protect. "Is Mommy really free forever now?" Lucy whispered to Eleanor, loud enough for Alexander to hear. "Yes, sweetheart," Eleanor answered. The judge fixed the mistake. Alexander watched Lily's expression, always the more perceptive twin. Unlike her, sister's uncomplicated joy, Lily's face showed understanding beyond her years. She knew that something profound had been righted today, even if she couldn't articulate the complexities of justice and injustice. That evening, they celebrated at a restaurant nicer than any the twins had ever visited. Alexander had chosen carefully, elegant enough to mark the occasion but comfortable enough that the girls wouldn't feel intimidated. As they ate dessert, Alexander placed a small velvet box beside Jennifer's plate. "What's this?" she asked, her eyes questioning. "Open it," he encouraged gently. Inside nestled a delicate gold key on a chain, an exact replica of the key that wound their music box. "I thought you might want to carry the melody with you," he said simply. Jennifer's eyes glistened as she lifted the necklace. "It's perfect," she whispered, allowing him to fasten it around her neck. Lucy clapped her hands in delight. "It matches the music box. Can I have one too?" "Actually," Alexander smiled, producing 2 more boxes, "I thought you both might like your own." The twins opened their gifts to find matching necklaces, though each was distinctly personalized. Lucy's key featured tiny inlaid gemstones in rainbow colors, while Lily's had small stars etched into the metal. "The rainbow is because you bring color everywhere you go," Alexander explained to Lucy. "And the stars are because you help people see things that are far away but important," he told Lily. Lucy immediately put hers on, twirling to make the gemstones catch the light. Lily examined hers carefully before allowing Alexander to help her with the clasp. "Thank you for seeing us," Lily said solemnly, her small hand touching the key. "Most grown-ups think we're the same person." Alexander's chest tightened at the simple wisdom in her words. "You're both extraordinary in completely different ways." Jennifer watched this exchange, something shifting in her expression. The careful boundaries she'd maintained began to soften as she witnessed Alexander's genuine connection with their daughters, not as an obligation or novelty, but as a father who truly saw them as individuals. Later, as they walked through the park toward home, Lucy slipped her hand into Alexander's without hesitation. After a moment's consideration, Lily did the same on his other side. "Does this mean you're staying?" Lily asked directly, looking up at him with eyes that missed nothing. Alexander met Jennifer's gaze over the twins' heads, a question in his expression. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Yes," he answered firmly, squeezing both their hands gently. "I'm staying." Alexander stood silently in the empty living room, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Providence Harbor. The real estate agent had discreetly stepped outside, sensing his client needed a moment alone with his thoughts. "It's perfect," he whispered to himself, envisioning the space filled with laughter, arguments, celebrations, all the messy, beautiful moments of family life he'd never experienced. The colonial-style home sat on a generous plot with a fenced backyard. 4 bedrooms, a library that could become a playroom, a kitchen designed for gathering rather than just cooking. Far from the opulent mansions his wealth could afford, this was a home meant for living. When he'd shown Jennifer the listing photos, her eyes had widened. "It's beautiful, but Alexander, the cost." "Let me do this," he'd replied softly, "not to show off or control anything, because they deserve stability and you deserve peace." Now, as he wandered from room to room, he mentally assigned spaces. The corner bedroom with morning light for Lucy's art easel. The room with built-in shelves for Lily's books and science projects. The garden-facing suite for Jennifer. The downstairs guest room adapted for Eleanor's needs. His phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Picking up twins from school. Still meeting at 4? Today was the day they'd planned to show the girls the house, if Jennifer approved. He texted back a quick confirmation and called the agent back inside. "We'll take it," he said decisively. "And I'd like to discuss some modifications before the family visits this afternoon." By 4 o'clock, Alexander had arranged for a simple picnic in the empty living room. Nothing extravagant, just sandwiches, fruit, and lemonade on a blanket. When the front door opened, Lucy's excited chatter echoed through the empty house. "It sounds big," she exclaimed, her voice bouncing off bare walls. It's just empty, Lily corrected, always practical. Sound waves reflect differently without furniture. Alexander emerged from the kitchen to find Jennifer standing in the entryway, the twins exploring cautiously around her. Her expression was complex, wonder mixed with uncertainty. "What do you think?" he asked quietly. Before Jennifer could answer, Lucy spotted him and ran forward. "Is this your new house? It's huge." "Actually," Alexander said, kneeling to her level, "I was hoping it might be our new house, for all of us." Lucy's eyes widened. "Even Grandma Eleanor?" "Especially Grandma Eleanor," Alexander confirmed. "There's a special room downstairs so she wouldn't have to climb stairs." Lily had been silently inspecting the space, running her hand along the walls. "Would we share a room here too?" she asked, the practical question containing deeper significance. "No," Alexander replied gently. "You'd each have your own room, but they connect with a special door in between, so you could still be together whenever you want." Lily nodded, considering this thoughtfully. "That sounds acceptable." Jennifer finally spoke, her voice soft. "It's lovely, Alexander, but this is a big step." "Come see something," he said, leading them upstairs to what would be the master bedroom. There he'd had the contractors create something special, a small sitting area with 3 chairs and built-in bookshelves. "This would be your private space, Jennifer," he explained. "A sanctuary. We can move as slowly as you need. Separate rooms, separate lives under one roof at first if that's what feels right." The moving van had just departed, leaving boxes scattered throughout the new house like islands in an unfamiliar sea. Lucy darted between them, treating the maze as an adventure, while Lily methodically organized her science books in her new room. Eleanor supervised the kitchen unpacking while Jennifer arranged photographs in the living room, casual snapshots of the twins throughout their 5 years, preserving memories despite difficult circumstances. Alexander carried the last of Eleanor's belongings to her downstairs suite, designed specifically for her comfort with wider doorways, accessible bathroom fixtures, and a private sitting area overlooking the garden. Though they'd only known each other a few months, mutual love for the twins had forged a respectful bond between Alexander and the woman who had sacrificed so much to keep his daughters safe. "You've thought of everything," Eleanor commented, watching him arrange her favorite reading lamp beside a comfortable chair. "I want everyone to feel at home here," Alexander replied simply. "Even yourself?" Eleanor asked perceptively. "This is quite different from your penthouse lifestyle." Alexander smiled. "This is the first place that's ever truly felt like home." The doorbell's chime echoed through the half-furnished house, interrupting their conversation. Alexander frowned. They weren't expecting visitors on moving day. When he opened the door, the blood drained from his face. Victoria Hayes stood on the porch, immaculately dressed in designer clothes, her silver-streaked hair perfectly styled, her expression a mask of polite interest that didn't reach her calculating eyes. "Alexander, darling," she said smoothly. "What a charming little house." "Mother," he managed, shock giving way to cold anger. "What are you doing here?" "Is that any way to greet your mother?" Victoria asked, stepping forward as if expecting an invitation. "I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Your office said you were handling personal matters in Providence, of all places." She peered past him into the house, her gaze sharpening as Jennifer appeared in the hallway with Lucy close behind. "Ah," Victoria said softly. "I see you've found your little college romance. How quaint." Jennifer froze, instinctively pulling Lucy behind her. The little girl peeked around her mother's legs, curiosity overwhelming caution. "Who's that lady?" Lucy asked loudly. Alexander stepped between his mother and his family. "Victoria was just leaving," he said firmly. "Without meeting my granddaughters?" Victoria countered, her voice honey-coated poison. "Surely you wouldn't deny me that small pleasure after all these years." Lily appeared at the top of the stairs, her analytical gaze taking in the tense scene below. "Who's she?" she called to Jennifer, her voice uncharacteristically uncertain. Victoria looked up, her expression calculating as she studied the child. My goodness, she has your eyes, Alexander. Both of them do. How inconvenient that must have been for their mother, raising such obvious reminders of the man who abandoned her. That's enough. Alexander's voice cut like steel. You will not speak to my family that way. Not after what you did. Victoria's perfectly composed facade cracked slightly. What I did was protect you from a gold-digging college girl who would have derailed your entire future. You lied to her. You lied to me. You kept my daughters from me for 5 years, Alexander said, each word precise and measured despite the rage beneath them. Mommy? Lucy's voice trembled as she clung to Jennifer's leg. Is the angry lady talking about us? Jennifer knelt beside her daughter, her voice steady despite her pallor. Go upstairs with Lily, sweetheart, this is grown-up talk. After Victoria's dramatic departure, hastened by Alexander's firm insistence and Eleanor's surprisingly formidable support, the new house fell into an uneasy silence. Lucy and Lily retreated to their connected rooms, whispering together in the private language of twins that even Jennifer couldn't fully decipher. Alexander and Jennifer sat at the kitchen table, coffee growing cold between them as they faced the inevitable conversation they'd been postponing. We have to tell them, Jennifer said quietly. After what Victoria said, they're confused and scared. Alexander nodded, his expression grave. I wanted this to happen differently. On our terms, when they were ready. Children are more resilient than we give them credit for, Eleanor said, joining them with a fresh pot of tea. But they need honesty, especially after what they've been through. Jennifer twisted her hands together. What if they're angry that we kept this from them? What if Lily retreats further? She's just starting to trust again. We'll face that together, Alexander assured her, reaching tentatively for her hand. They deserve the truth however they respond to it. Jennifer nodded, squeezing his fingers briefly before standing. Let's talk to them in Lucy's room. It's more colorful, less intimidating. They found the twins sitting cross-legged on Lucy's rainbow rug, Lily explaining something scientific about cloud formations, while Lucy sketched them in her notebook. Both looked up as the adults entered, their identical faces showing different versions of concern. Was that lady your mommy? Lucy asked Alexander immediately. Yes, he answered, sitting on the floor to join them at their level. That was my mother, Victoria. She wasn't very nice, Lucy observed with a child's direct honesty. No, she wasn't, Alexander agreed. And what she said wasn't nice either. But some of it wasn't true. Lily studied his face carefully. Which parts weren't true? Alexander met Jennifer's eyes, receiving her slight nod of encouragement. The part where she said I abandoned your mom. I never knew about you two. My mother kept a very important secret. What secret? Lily pressed, her analytical mind seeking clarity. Jennifer joined them on the floor, forming a small circle. Do you remember asking me about your father, and I told you he lived far away? The twins nodded in unison. Alexander is your father, Jennifer said gently. He didn't know about you because Victoria, his mother, told me he didn't want to be your dad. And she told him I'd gone away without explaining why. A heavy silence fell over the room. Lucy's eyes widened, darting between her mother and Alexander as she processed this revelation. Lily's brow furrowed, her expression unreadable. That's why you look like us, Lucy finally whispered. Your eyes are like ours, and your thinking is like mine. Lily added quietly, still processing. Alexander felt his throat tighten. I've missed knowing you both for 5 years. If I had known about you, I would have been there every day. Can we call you Dad? Lucy asked, her natural exuberance breaking through the tension. Only if you want to, Alexander assured her, and only when you're ready. Lily remained silent, her small face serious as she considered the implications. If you're our dad, she finally said, does that mean you'll stay forever? Not just until something more important comes along? The question cut through Alexander's heart. Such adult skepticism from a 5-year-old who had already learned that people leave. Nothing is more important than you two and your mom, he answered, his voice thick with emotion. Nothing ever will be. 6 months after moving into their new home, the backyard transformed into a wonderland of colorful balloons and streamers. It was the twins' 6th birthday, their first with both parents present, their first in a home that wasn't struggling for heat or food, their first where celebration wasn't shadowed by prison visits. Alexander had initially suggested elaborate plans, a party at a children's museum, professional entertainers, extravagant gifts, but Jennifer gently redirected his enthusiasm. They need normal, not spectacular, she'd advised. Childhood friends, cake, games, nothing that sets them apart from other children. He'd embraced this wisdom, channeling his resources into creating a perfect backyard party with a bouncy castle, face painting, and enough pizza and ice cream to satisfy a dozen excited 6-year-olds. The only extravagance he hadn't been able to resist was hiring a professional cake decorator to create a masterpiece that represented both girls, half covered in rainbow colors and stars for Lucy, half adorned with planets and mathematical symbols for Lily. As Alexander stood by the grill, watching Jennifer organize games with enviable patience, he marveled at how much had changed. The twins now moved with confidence through the world, secure in the knowledge that both parents would be there when they returned from school or playdates. Eleanor had flourished in her new role as beloved grandmother rather than overburdened caretaker. And Jennifer, brilliant, resilient Jennifer, had returned to teaching, her passion for literature reignited. He and Jennifer were building something too, carefully and deliberately. Separate bedrooms had gradually given way to late-night conversations that stretched until dawn, shared laughter over the twins' antics, and eventually, tentative rediscovery of the love that had never truly died. "Penny for your thoughts," Eleanor said, joining him with a glass of lemonade. "Just grateful," he replied simply. "For all of this, for second chances." Eleanor smiled knowingly. "Speaking of second chances, I believe you have a question to ask." "Today?" Alexander patted his pocket, feeling the small velvet box hidden there. "If the moment feels right." As the party reached its height, with children running through sprinklers and chasing bubbles across the lawn, Alexander saw Lily separate herself from the group. Unlike her sister who thrived on social energy, Lily occasionally needed quiet moments to recharge. He found her sitting under her favorite reading tree, carefully examining a kaleidoscope she'd received as a gift. "Too loud?" he asked, sitting beside her. Lily nodded. "I like watching, but sometimes it's a lot." "I understand," Alexander said. "I'm the same way." They sat in comfortable silence, a connection that required no words. Finally, Lily turned to him, her expression serious. "Dad," she said, using the title she'd adopted gradually over the past months, "are you and Mom going to get married?" Alexander blinked, surprised by her directness. "Would that be okay with you if we did?" Lily considered this with typical thoroughness. "Lucy would like it. She wants to be a flower girl." "And what about you?" Alexander pressed gently. "I think it would be logical," Lily replied, then added more softly, "and I think it would make us a real family. Forever." Alexander felt his heart expand. "That's exactly what I want too." Later, as Jennifer carried out the birthday cake ablaze, with 12 candles, 6 for each twin, the backyard fell silent for the traditional song. When the last notes faded, before the twins could blow out their candles, Alexander stepped forward. "I'd like to add one more wish to this special day," he said, kneeling between the girls and producing the small velvet box. Looking up at Jennifer, whose hands flew to her mouth in surprise, he opened it to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. "Jennifer Reynolds, will you marry me and make our family complete?" The garden bloomed with early summer flowers. Their fragrance carried on a gentle breeze across the gathered guests. White chairs lined a grassy aisle, leading to a simple arch adorned with wildflowers and fairy lights. It was exactly as Jennifer had imagined, intimate, unpretentious, focused on love rather than spectacle. Inside the house, Alexander adjusted his tie for the third time, his hands uncharacteristically unsteady. For a man who routinely negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, he found himself undone by the significance of this day. "You look handsome," Eleanor said, entering the room with a warm smile. "And nervous as any proper groom should be." Alexander laughed softly. "After everything we've been through to get here, you'd think I'd be calmer." "It's precisely because of everything you've been through that this matters so much," Eleanor replied, straightening his already perfect tie. "Are the girls ready?" Lucy's been ready since dawn. Lily was rechecking her flower basket to ensure the optimal petal-to-step ratio. His smile widened. "They're perfect, Eleanor. Thank you for keeping them safe when I couldn't." Eleanor's eyes misted briefly. They've always been loved. Now they're simply complete. Downstairs, the twins twirled in matching dresses, identical in style but different in color. Lucy's was a vibrant blue that matched her exuberant personality, while Lily's was a deep purple that complemented her more thoughtful nature. Each wore their key necklace, now a treasured symbol of their unique identities within their shared story. "Do I look pretty enough?" Lucy asked, spinning for the 10th time to make her skirt flare. "You look beautiful," Jennifer assured her, adjusting the flower crown nestled in Lucy's auburn curls. "Both of you do." Lily studied her mother with serious eyes. "You look like a queen, Mom," she declared solemnly. Jennifer knelt carefully in, her simple white dress gathering both girls close. "I need to tell you something important," she whispered. "Today isn't just about Alexander and me getting married. It's about celebrating our family, the one we always were meant to be." "But we're already a family," Lucy said, confusion crossing her face. "Yes," Jennifer agreed, "but today makes it official in everyone's eyes, and I want you both to know that no matter what happens, you two were always the greatest love of my life." Lily, ever perceptive, understood the deeper meaning. "Even when things were really hard? When you were in that bad place?" "Especially then," Jennifer confirmed, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "You two gave me reason to keep going, to never give up hope." The music began, signaling it was time. Eleanor appeared at the doorway. "Ready, girls? Remember, slow steps, just like we practiced." As the twins took their positions, Alexander took his place under the flower arch, his breath catching as the music shifted and Lucy appeared first, scattering rose petals with dramatic flourish, followed by Lily, who distributed her petals with precise placement. The guests smiled at their contrasting approaches, but Alexander saw only the miracle of these two extraordinary children who had changed his life forever. Then Jennifer appeared, and the world seemed to pause. She carried no elaborate bouquet, only the golden music box that had brought them together again after 13 years apart. As she walked toward him, Alexander felt the years of emptiness of searching without knowing what he sought dissolve into this perfect moment of completion. Their vows were simple, focused on commitment, forgiveness, and building a future together. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Lucy cheered loudly while Lily beamed with uncharacteristic abandon. At the reception, as twilight softened the garden with golden light, Alexander gathered his family under their favorite oak tree away from the celebration for a private moment. "I have something for all of us," he said, taking the music box from Jennifer's hands. "A new tradition." He opened it carefully, but instead of the familiar melody, the box remained silent. The twins looked confused until Alexander reached inside, removing the hidden compartment where once a photograph had changed everything. In its place lay a new photograph, Alexander, Jennifer, Lucy, and Lily together, on the day they had moved into their home. Beside it was a small key, identical to the ones they wore around their necks. "This key will start the melody again," Alexander explained, fitting it carefully into the winding mechanism. "Because our story isn't ending, it's just beginning." As the sweet, familiar notes filled the air, Lucy leaned against her father while Lily took her mother's hand. The melody that had once lulled them to sleep, that had connected them across years of separation, now played for a family made whole through forgiveness, perseverance, and love. Dad? Lily asked, her analytical mind never at rest. Will you tell us the whole story someday? About how you and Mom met and everything that happened? Every word, Alexander promised. When you're older. Even the sad parts? Lucy wondered, her expressive face showing concern. Alexander and Jennifer exchanged a glance of perfect understanding before he answered. Especially those. Because without them, we might never have found our way back to each other. And to you. As the music box played its final notes, a chapter closed. Not just in their story, but in their hearts. The past, with all its pain and separation, no longer shadowed their future. In its place stood a family forged through loss and found through love, their melody returning full circle to where it always belonged.